All right, easy and cheap ways to fill raised beds, especially these are like a little over 26 inches tall. So we do have a surplus of compost and composted wood chips as well. And we filled this bed up last night. How we start. Now, I know there's a lot of folks out there who have a lot of different opinions on Hugulkulture, and this is how we fill these beds. Again, I cut out the center of the top part when I set this thing down on it, or the ground cover, whatever you call it. And then I lay about 3 to 4 layers deep of heavy cardboard. And it's just usually it's not the glossed. You don't want the glossed or the plastic, and you want to remove all plastic tape and stuff from them. So you put your layer of cardboard down on the ground, and I always soak it real good with the hose, which I did last night, but I'm not going to do right now because I'm getting ready to top this off with straw. And that's straw that's actually about a year old now. So a couple dead trees laying around. I believe this one's an old poplar. And I went ahead and cut it up this morning and brought it to fill the bottom of this bed up. Now you'll see that there is some open areas. A lot of folks are pretty particular about this. They'll come in and they'll start filling that up with sticks and every little thing that they can find laying around. I'm not that particular because I have a surplus of compost and the wood chips now. So I'm not going to do that. So what I did was I did put my base layer here. And then I'm going to take this straw bale and I'll break it all up and put in here, and then I'll soak it real good with the hose, and then I'll come in and bring my compost in on top of it. Now as you fill with your just straw, just kind of flake it, break it up real good. Don't worry, it is going to fluff up and bulk out, look like, oh crap, I just overfilled my bed. You're not, look. Okay, so you've got plenty of space there. As you come in and put your whatever you're going to put next, you can layer this with like a lasagna type, where you can come in and take some extra old raised bed or garden soil and put on top of this, and it'll settle down in, push that straw down, or you could just go ahead and start dumping your compost or your mulch or your compost on top of that. Don't put anything in here that's actively composting because you don't want to produce a bunch of heat. Now, a lot of folks in the past will say that these things will generate a lot of heat, being galvanized metal, that it'll heat the soil up too high. That's false. It will not. The only place that's going to affect the soil temperature is right within the first couple inches, probably no more in than that 4x4. We've measured the temperature before, so we know it doesn't do that. Yes, right against it, but out about 4 inches, you're not going to get that. So finish off your straw in here, and then you can come in and put your next layer on. All right, so once your straw is on, just come in here, and you can see it. The straw is starting to settle already. As soon as you start putting wet water to it, it'll settle in there. It'll allow that water to get down in there and soak that wood and that cardboard again. And then when you come in and put your compost on top of this, it'll settle even more. So you can build your layer up of your wood and your lasagna layer, however you want to do it, to not have to have more than probably 10 to 12 inches of growing medium on top, and that would be like your soil, your compost and stuff. It doesn't take a whole lot. It really doesn't. But you want a good foot, 12 to 14 inches, maybe even upwards of 16 inches, depending on what you're growing in these beds. Now, we have grown potatoes in these beds. How deep we put the dirt in the beds for the potatoes, Emily? Well, I mean, we did the Hugulkulture on the bottom though, right?
Yeah.
So, but how much dirt do you think?
It was probably
about 16 inches?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for potatoes, it was about 16 inches that we put in the raised beds when we did potatoes a couple years, or last year. We're not going to grow any potatoes this year because we don't eat potatoes. I know that sounds crazy, but trying to stick to the low carb, way of eating and stuff like that, because it's better for us and we seem to tolerate it a little better. Now, potatoes would be something that in a feces hitting the oscillating device or a shit hitting the fan type of situation, for those who understand plain English, yes, potatoes would be a good survival food and a good crop to have, because they store well in cool, dark places, and they got some pretty dense nutrition that you could benefit from. But we've got enough stuff canned that we preserve, and we've got enough because we raise our own meat animals and everything like that. We're not too terribly worried about that at this point. Sorry, you're seeing my mess over here. There's That big bush right there you see is horseradish. On the other side of that is strawberries, and we need to actually get all that moved as well, because we're going to completely take that last little bed out of here. But we'll soak this down real good, and then I'll come in and I'll put about 3 buckets of compost, 2 or 3 buckets of compost on top of this, and tractor buckets, that is. And then we'll, like this, I've got rabbit manure in these containers here that we harvest from our rabbits. And then after I put the compost down, I'll put a good layer of rabbit manure, and then come in and put about 3 to 4 inches of composted wood chips on top of it. And it'll hold water real well. This will actually turn all that wood down there into a big sponge that'll keep moisture in the soil and in the beds. And the cardboard, as it breaks down, will attract earthworms, because it has fats in it, so it attracts them, and they'll eat it up, and hell, next year there won't even be any cardboard left in here. So, and of course I'm not going to dig down into it. The only way these things are getting moved is if, once we do get the high tunnel over there, we're probably going to move several of the beds, but probably several of the older beds, and get them over there to open this area up, because this is more likely where I'll end up putting my woodshed if I get around to that this year. Otherwise, we'll go back to the old method that we did last year. Got a utility tent that will set some pallets down and do that. All right, so get a good soaking, like I said, on this, and then I'll come in and put a couple, 2 to 3 buckets of compost on top of it, a good layer of rabbit manure, and then a bucket of wood chips, composted wood chips, and we're ready to plant, because these are going to be the pepper beds. These 2 are going to be the pepper beds. She's got 50 tomatoes planted in the 2 U beds right there. This trellis bed, 2 trellis beds right here, is going to be green beans. Yeah, green beans. And then we've got a couple panels over here. We're going to trellis between this bed and that bed, and do our cucumbers. I'm trying to remember, daggone. Anyways, that's it. Just want to give you guys an idea of this Hugulkulture method. So again, you see that there is no contact of treated lumber to the soil, so there's no worry about that. Galvanized metal, if it does release any zinc, it's very little amounts, and it does not travel all the way across the bed into the soil. It's only going to be just in the very first few inches of the beds, and it's going to just kind of sink down into the soil anyway. And it's not going to release toxic amounts of zinc that's going to harm you. Zinc is a mineral that we all need anyways. So don't worry too much about that. And like I said, unless you're going to burn this or heat this, by a flame, it's not going to release toxic amounts of zinc into your bed. So don't worry about that. And as I continue to sit here and spray this, you can just watch that straw continue to settle down. And like I said, it will settle as it gets wetter and as you put the soil and the compost on top of it. So don't worry about this being too much, because there's still plenty of zinc left to it. And the compost and the soil and stuff that you put on top will take care of that. But this lets you get good amount of water down. It gets into that wood, gets into that cardboard on the bottom, because the wood is setting on the cardboard. And it'll just continuously stay wet, hold that moisture and everything, and it'll allow the plants to have access to that moisture in the soil. Yes, you will have to continue to water your plants, but they'll have access to water all the time from that wood and the cardboard. Daggone, I can remember that. All right. All right, so now I'm gonna go get a couple bucketfuls of compost, and then I'll get another bucket or 2 of wood chips put on this with some rabbit poo, and we're ready to plant some peppers. And the end result will look just like this. And that's plenty of good soil. Look how damp that is in there. And I just wetted this last night. There's a little clump of clay, but I just sprayed this down last night after I got everything done to get it to settle, and there's a great amount of moisture and stuff still left in there. So good growing medium. Want to grow some good peppers. All right, guys, stay prepared, stay free, take care, and God bless y'all.